Welcome to RSA Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Mr. Alex Pinto, Associate Director of Threat Intelligence at Verizon Business. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thank you, Adrian. It's nice to be here.
Lovely to be here with you. One of my favorite topics. I am like a kid on Christmas when the DBIR comes out, and there have been times when I stay up late. I want to be one of the first to get out a blog post. This year, I was fortunate enough to get an early copy, and we did a podcast together, which is great.
Yes, it was amazing.
So, in its 18th year, DBIR is adult age now. Like, are there still any surprises? I'm curious about people's expectations when it comes out. Like, some people have preformed notions of what they're going to find in the report, but it is, I think it's a good reminder that it is a somewhat unique report in that I don't think anybody else gets as many different data sources, as many different perspectives globally too, like not just the United States at all.
Correct.
Into one place on how failures occur.
Yeah, really the challenge and really the objective that we're trying to hit every year is, can we gather information from more sources that we can from all sorts of the world, from different data types even. Like if you look at our contributor list, there are companies who do vulnerability management, companies who do work around credential protection or MFA or malware companies or instant response companies, even cyber insurers. But really the challenge here is to be able to get all that and use it to make sense of what happened the previous year, right?
Yeah.
I usually talk to the folks at the team. We're like historians. We're looking at all this documentation, and we're trying to figure out what did happen. What's the narrative? What will 2024 be remembered by? That has to be memorialized in the 2025 report, right? And so the threat landscape, it changes very slowly until it doesn't, right? It's really fascinating the way that you see some very long standing trends like, oh, ransomware is up again, right?
Yeah.
And we get chuckles everywhere. Oh yeah, oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
But hey,
we've seen it go up and down though. Like that's
Correct.
not been just
Correct.
up and to the right.
Correct, but it hasn't quite broken the trend yet.
Yeah.
Right, and even I remember in 2018, right, I wasn't even a part of the team yet, but I do remember this anecdote where we kept reporting on ransomware and said, oh no, we think this is going to be big because of the way it is structured, because of the way it's easy to monetize.
It's very flexible.
Right,
Yeah.
and at the time, a lot of the other reports were like, nah, this is a flash in the pan.
Really?
You know, crypto mining is the thing now,
Yeah.
which is gonna, hey.
How'd that pan out?
Well, this is why we say we're not in the prediction, right? We are in the kind of history business, right? But I mean, you can kind of see where things are going, and it becomes very easy to understand, oh, this is kind of mimicking the trajectory of this specific things that already happened, and so we should expect to see more of those.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still black swan events. There's still, things that are difficult to predict. To your point, I don't think anybody predicted generative AI rewriting everyone's roadmaps overnight. Like every tech company, every security company just kind of scrapped everything they were planning on doing to check out this new technology and see what they could do with it. But
Absolutely.
It doesn't look like it's really made a huge dent in the report yet, despite everything you might see at the show here. AI is the biggest threat, is what it's going to feel like. We're now in our third year of AI just absolutely dominating this. But when I read your report, it's not dominated by AI.
Yeah, the thing you have to understand is that just like the term itself has 1,000 definitions, depending who you ask, right? It's really about which aspect of AI influencing security we're interested in talking about, right? At the DBIR, we're mainly focused on, is this being leveraged as a force multiplier or maybe opening new avenues of attack, right, to the known threat actors, to the known things, right? And in that specific realm, right, is when we haven't really found a lot of, so we did find traction, right? There is documented evidence everywhere from the platforms themselves that threat actors are using generative AI to try to augment what they're doing, but we haven't seen bottom line impact, right?
Yeah.
The example we cite on the report is about, 2 years and a half of growth on the usage of synthetic text, right? LLM generated or proto LLM generated in malicious emails like phishing and things of the like.
Which is a no-brainer use case.
Correct, but it hasn't impacted the bottom line on phishing, right? It's been roughly stable. It's not like, oh, phishing got 2 times more dangerous now because, and so there will be optimizations, there will be improvements in the margins, but there's no groundbreaking thing. If you want to hear about a groundbreaking thing, right, which are things that I think are shifting, right, have to do, again, the endpoint is mostly ransomware, but the huge shift we saw was around credential abuse being like kind of the initial access vector there, moving towards each time more into exploitation of vulnerabilities, right?
I keep hearing about info stealers, particularly on Macs, which has not been a hugely targeted platform, but when you consider that's what all the executives want to use, that's what the devs prefer, that's what the engineers prefer, that even the security people prefer Macs, right?
Yeah,
so
no, I have
makes sense to target, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Again, info stealers is a very old technology, just like ransomware is a very old technology, right? And it has been improved a lot in the margins. And the interest in info stealers is interesting because it's kind of a cumulative effect, as in people are not worried about info stealers now because it has become a problem now. It's because it has been a problem for so long, and a lot threat actors have built like critical mass of credentials they can abuse, right, on very specific systems, right? And when they kind of play that card, have we automated the search and kind of brute forcing, quote unquote. It's not quite brute forcing because they're just credential stuffing, right? But they automate the process. Then you see huge impacts like you saw with the breaches involving the Snowflake platform, right? Snowflake wasn't breached, but because there was this critical mass of credentials that was over time built by all this info stealer activity, right? Suddenly, oh my God, didn't quite figure out that these things could happen, but just becomes, a kind of a clarion call, a very strong signal that, we should definitely be caring about those things.
Yeah, and it's that's an interesting conversation to have there around Snowflake. Like, sure, they weren't breached, but if there's systemic risk built into the product, such that over 100 of your customers get hit all around the same time, are you still somewhat responsible for that?
Yeah. So specifically, I think that they were unlucky to be chosen, right? I do not think that any qualms you might have on the way that they have, should we have mandated MFA or not? I don't think there's something exclusive to them. It's not like, they messed up, and then everybody else had figured this out from the start, right? And so in that respect, I think they were unlucky to be the one chosen, but the same way that they quickly noticed and they fixed, I think everybody has the same chance, right? Everybody has the same opportunity, every single platform to maybe I should mandate MFA across the board now, right? But
you laid out the recipe in the report. Like, here's why they were chosen. Certainly, there was an aspect of luck. Like they could have chosen other companies, but the fact that there is really interesting data in there.
Of course. Yes, of course.
And you had this pattern where they were just, I think somebody told me you couldn't even enforce MFA. Like, you could turn it on, but individuals could turn off MFA on their own accounts or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not super sure on the minutia detail there.
Like I've heard that, but once you notice that MFA is missing, it definitely a target for credit stuffing.
Again, I wouldn't demonize them, right? I think they were unlucky. We even made make a joke on the report
I'm
about.
not trying to, but just viewing it like the attacker, right?
Of course.
Like
it's an opportunity.
Look at the data that's in here. Accounts aren't well protected. That's attractive.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what your report does. Is like, help me see my infrastructure through the lens of these breaches.
Yeah, really the message that we want to put forward is that every single interface you have, right, we're really raising the kind of the alarm around third-party involvement in breaches, right, which has doubled, right, from 15%-ish to 30% at this year, right, is that you should have a plan, right? You should be sitting down with your suppliers, with your, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, all of these folks, and understanding, okay, what are the limitations of the model? Think about the shared security model from the Cloud Security Alliance, right? Okay, where does your limitation end? Where does your responsibility end? Where does mine start, right? These are known problems, right? These are things that people have already done work mapping, right? But it takes a lot of due diligence, takes a lot of work to actually make sure that all these lines are drawn very precisely, right? And I think there's a great opportunity, not even from the customers themselves, right? But also for the vendors to start that conversation, right? They should be, okay, how are we going to do our outreach campaign, all right? How can you use your accounts more securely in our platform, right? In order to minimize the risk of something like just happened last year happen again, right?
Yeah, and it's I think a term we're hearing more and more is resilience.
Yep.
And part of that is understanding connecting the business side to security is still something I don't see done enough. So you're talking about shared responsibility model being old, even older, a BIA, a business impact analysis.
Yes.
What does the business care about? What are they dependent on? What is the, what are the different tiers? Can we be down? Like we can't stand to be down for less than an hour with this component.
Yeah.
And understanding that, because your third-party risk management program has a long tail. So you've got to prioritize that, and a BIA I think is a great way to do that. And I'm surprised more people don't do it. That it's not a standard input to a security program.
Yeah, it's interesting because that specific concern is kind of the third pillar that we bring on the report around kind of the third-party concerns, right? Especially when you had incidents on 2024, like the one in Change Healthcare, CDK Global, right? These. If you look at what happened to them, it's your, garden variety ransomware.
Yeah.
However, because their availability was affected, right? The systems were down. Their customers couldn't operate, right? Health insurance couldn't charge, car dealerships couldn't sell across the country, right? It's really puts into perspective again, kind of the whole BIA thing you talked about, right? How much those companies were aware that, okay, I have like kind of a single point of failure here, right? And again, this is not some sort of, we shouldn't be automating all this business critical. No, the nature of business today is to try to find those kinds of efficiencies, right? But sometimes in the rush to find the efficiencies, right, we don't quite understand some of the risks that might be involved in it, right? And so,
well, the other component of resilience is agility.
Correct.
Right? If this supplier went away tomorrow, and it's something that you rely on day to day for operations, how quickly could you make that shift?
Yes.
And a lot of that has to do with your architecture. So CrowdStrike, I think, is another interesting example here where it wasn't a data breach, but it was an incident. It was an availability incident for a lot of companies and led a lot of companies to have to think about, okay, like this is... and it was kind of a black swan event.
Yes, that certainly was one of those.
Yeah,
yes.
It's where I don't think anybody
had it
anticipated
on the
that
radar,
or
no.
even realized how much CrowdStrike, that Falcon host product was touching.
Yeah. Well, if anything, it was a huge ad because now you see how many customers they have.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought that was really interesting. Like again, with humans are bad at predicting. So many people with the hot takes on, CrowdStrike is done now. They're finished. They're never going to come back.
Not.
Like, no, that makes no sense. Like,
yeah, but again, it's about if you never mess up, if you're a vendor and you never mess up, your customers can never fully trust you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 9% trust, but if you mess up and you handle it correctly, that's where the 100% trust is.
That's
you know what I
it.
mean?
You have to mess up well.
Yes.
You have to fail
Which is incredibly
gracefully.
hard. Yes,
You must
incredibly
fail
hard.
gracefully.
Yeah. But I think that, look, if the examples of CrowdStrike, the examples of Change Healthcare help people be more, also, I mean, again, we talk a lot about the cybers, right? A lot of what we see on the show floor fears about the cybers, and they're going to break in, and there's malware, and there's the next flavor of whatever they are. But availability is a huge concern. It's something, it's core. You cannot, protecting something means it has to keep running, right? And we always try to bring kind of the what we talked in the report kind of back to the ground floor level, right? It's not all nation state, it's not all, this dastardly vulnerabilities. No, there's a lot of errors, somebody tripped on the power cord kind of stuff, It happens, and
A
it's
lot of
very
people
damaged.
don't even think about that part.
Correct.
Like they're only interested in the breaches. But yeah, so many non-malicious errors that result in all kinds of
Correct.
incidents. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I think there's like 4 main areas. Do you want to summarize the report, and then we'll wrap up the conversation?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I think we touched on all of them or most of them, but let's go over.
It would be good to go down the list.
Of course.
Yeah.
So main finding that we want to talk about is really the growth of third-party exploitation. Sorry, excuse me. Third-party involvement in breaches. They were not the ones exploiting. Yeah. There are some, not a lot. But so went from 15 to 30%. And there's like kind of a few pillars there, right? We talked about the vulnerability management piece, right? A lot of these are, I bought a specific solution from a company and that solution was found to be vulnerable, right? It was especially hard this year, right? There was a lot to talk about for sure, given that if you look at 2023, it was mostly like move it and file servers, whereas in 2024, were edge of network devices, right? So your firewalls, your VPNs, and those you cannot say, just put it behind the firewall. You are the firewall, right?
Yeah, that's our whole purpose, is to be exposed.
Exactly. A lot of concern there. We talk a lot about that. It's something that I think people need to really pay attention. We do the info stealer piece, right? Credentials associated kind of with the Snowflake story, really brought it to the prominence, right? And we talk a little bit about the availability piece too, even though we don't really go into a deep dive right now. But it's really important to understand how those relationships, they touch everything, right? At what we're trying to do, right? If you thought defending your own organization was hard, right? I have bad news for you, right? You also have to think about all those interfaces.
Yeah.
But again, it's solvable. It requires communication, requires partnership, right? And this is really what we're trying to advocate. We're really kind of a glass half full people at the DBIR,
That's
right?
nice.
Maybe we're naive, but we try to be hopeful, right? And we try to at least signal that, okay, there are ways out here. They might not be easy, but there's definitely stuff that anybody can do. Just like you finish reading the report, okay, this is what I should do this year to kind of try to be a little bit better for next year.
So third-party credentials, I think ransomware was one of them?
Ransomware was,
and then what was the
vulnerability management piece around the edge device.
Exploitation.
Exploitation,
yes. That's right. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, Alex.
Of course, it's a
this
pleasure.
has been great. Always love talking with you. To find out more about Verizon Business, please visit securityweekly.com/Verizon RSAC. For all RSA 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thanks again, Alex, for the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Love chatting with you. Stick around. We'll be back after the break with more interviews live from the RSA Conference 2025.